What if I told you there was once a vehicle that looked like a jet fighter, but was actually street legal? A machine that turned every highway into a mini runway. And yet you didn't need a pilot's license to drive it? Meet the 1985 Pulse Autocycle, one of the strangest, boldest, and most misunderstood machines ever built. It wasn't quite a car, and it wasn't exactly a motorcycle either. It was something in between, and it promised to change the future of personal transportation forever. But what really happened behind the scenes? Why did this futuristic road jet vanish so quickly? And what hidden secrets still surround this bizarre machine decades later? Well, buckle up, because today we're uncovering the hidden truths, the weird engineering, and the crazy ambition behind the Pulse Autocycle. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll see why it was both ahead of its time and doomed by it. Oh, and before we dive straight into the cockpit of this story, smash that subscribe button like you're slamming the throttle on a jet engine, because what's coming next will blow your mind. Now, let's taxi down the runway of history. Back in the early 1980s, while most people were obsessing over boxy sedans and muscle cars, one man, Jim Bede, an aerospace engineer, had a vision that looked straight out of a sci-fi movie. He wanted to bring aviation design to the streets, not metaphorically, literally. His dream? To create a road-going jet fighter. The result was the Pulse Autocycle, also known as the Light Star in its earliest form. It looked like something that just escaped Area 51, a sleek, bullet-shaped body with a glass canopy like a fighter jet, two small outrigger wheels for balance, and a pointed nose that screamed Top Gun but on asphalt. But here's where things get even weirder. The Pulse wasn't classified as a car. It was registered as a motorcycle. Yep, that means you could technically ride it with a motorcycle license. Imagine pulling up next to a Harley rider, helmet on, sitting inside what looks like a mini F-16. And if you think that's wild, wait till you hear about how it was built. Because up next, we're diving into the bizarre engineering that made this flying road rocket possible, and the one design flaw that nearly caused it to fail before takeoff. Now, let's pop the canopy open and see what made the Pulse tick, or should I say roar. Underneath that futuristic shell sat a Honda 1100cc motorcycle engine, the same power plant used in the Honda Goldwing of that era. That gave the Pulse around 65 to 80 horsepower, depending on the year and configuration. Its top speed? A respectable 140 miles per hour. Not bad for something that looked like a plane without wings. And because it was narrow like a bike but long like a car, it could slice through the wind with ridiculous aerodynamic efficiency. The body's drag coefficient was just 0.193, almost half that of most modern cars. To put that in perspective, that's slipperier than a Tesla Model S or even some concept EVs today. But it wasn't just about looks. The Pulse actually handled differently. It had two main wheels, front and rear, and two retractable outriggers that popped out when it stopped or turned sharply. Think of it like training wheels for a spaceship. Sounds genius, right? Well, not exactly. The outrigger design meant the Pulse sometimes leaned awkwardly in turns, and at low speeds it felt like balancing a surfboard on two pencils. Owners described it as fun but terrifying. You know you've built something special when your test drivers wear both a grin and a prayer. But despite those quirks, this engineering marvel caught the world's attention. And here's the twist. It wasn't even made by a big automaker. Because in the next section, we'll uncover the small-town factory that secretly built this futuristic jet car. and the unbelievable characters behind it. Believe it or not, the Pulse wasn't built in some high-tech hangar or Detroit facility. It was manufactured in Owasso, Michigan, by a tiny company called Owasso Motor Car Company, OMCC. This was a handful of people in a small warehouse, building what looked like fighter jets for the highway. Over its short life, between 1985 and 1990, only around 347 units were ever made. Each one was hand-built, customized, and came with its own quirks. The team behind it truly believed they were changing the future of transportation. They imagined highways filled with sleek aerodynamic pods zipping past bulky cars, a future where everyone looked like Maverick from Top Gun. But reality had other plans. The Pulse's $20,000 price tag in the mid-80s was too high, its handling too strange, and its reliability, well, let's just say it had a personality. Still, OMCC didn't give up. They even tried to market it as a roadable aircraft experience, which, to be fair, is a pretty cool sales pitch. But the dream started to crack. Production slowed, orders faded, and soon the company went silent. Yet this isn't the end of the Pulse's story. Because what happened after production stopped might just be the most fascinating part. After OMCC shut its doors, you'd think the Pulse would disappear like so many other failed experiments. But instead, something magical happened. It gained a cult following. Collectors and tech enthusiasts started hunting them down. Why? Because the Pulse wasn't just a vehicle. It was a conversation piece, a piece of moving art, and a symbol of human imagination gone wild. Today, only about 300 Pulses are known to survive. Some have been restored to mint condition, and others have been turned into movie props, museum pieces, or weekend rocket rides. One collector even painted his like a US Navy jet, complete with fake missiles and squadron decals. Others swapped in more powerful engines, including turbocharged motorcycle motors and even electric conversions. And here's the fun part. Despite being built nearly 40 years ago, it's still street legal in most US states. Imagine driving down the road in that. Every kid points, every adult stares, and police officers. Well, they probably radio in just to ask what the heck that thing is. Open loop. But believe it or not, there's still one mystery about the Pulse that even collectors haven't fully solved. And it has to do with its strange origins and hidden design links to actual aircraft technology. Remember Jim Bead, the aerospace genius who started this whole idea? He wasn't just any engineer. He was the man behind Bead Aircraft, the company that created the BD-5 microjet, one of the smallest jet planes ever made. The Pulse's design wasn't a coincidence. Its shape, canopy, and even the control layout were directly inspired by Bead's BD-5 jet. In fact, early Pulse prototypes used actual aircraft canopies from Bead's aircraft supply chain. That's why, when you sit inside a Pulse, it doesn't feel like a car. It feels like a cockpit. Switches, levers, a narrow interior, and even the sound of the engine behind you create an illusion that you're about to take off. So the hidden secret is that the Pulse wasn't just inspired by aviation. It was literally born from it. A car designed by an airplane company, built in a car workshop, and driven like a motorcycle. And that hybrid DNA is what makes it so legendary today. But there's still one last twist. Something that even the Pulse's own creators didn't predict. Because what happened decades later proves the Pulse might have been predicting the future of transportation all along. Look at today's world. aerodynamic EVs, enclosed motorcycles, and even one-person pods like the Aptera or Solo EV. Sound familiar? They all trace back to the same philosophy that the Pulse represented: efficiency through aerodynamics and minimalism. Jim Bede's dream of a personal air-inspired vehicle is basically what Tesla, Aptera, and even Honda are chasing now, just with better tech. In a strange way, the Pulse was a prototype for the 21st century commute, born decades too early. It taught the world one critical lesson: sometimes the future arrives before we're ready for it. And you know what's crazy? Those old Pulse owners, the ones who risked it all for a spaceship-looking oddball, they were the early adopters of an idea that's finally becoming mainstream. So next time you see a futuristic EV or a streamlined autocycle, remember. In 1985, the Pulse Autocycle did it first. The 1985 Pulse Autocycle wasn't just a vehicle, it was a rebellion against boring. A creation born out of passion, science, and just a dash of madness. Sure, it wasn't perfect. It wobbled, it rattled, and it definitely made people ask, what is that thing? But it also made them dream. And in a world filled with ordinary machines, that's what truly matters. The Pulse Autocycle reminds us that innovation doesn't always need to succeed to be revolutionary. Sometimes it just needs to exist, to inspire the next generation of dreamers to think differently, to push harder, and to believe that yes, the future can have wings. So the next time someone tells you your idea is too weird or too impossible, just tell them about the Pulse Autocycle. Because if a street-legal jet can exist, so can your crazy dream. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the strangest vehicles ever made, hit that like button and subscribe to AbTech Lab, where we bring you the wildest stories in the world of machines, engineering, and innovation. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep your engines roaring and your imagination flying.